on Christmas morning. I stood at the red door of my son's house with an apple pie in my hands. Snowflakes clung to my coat as if the winter itself was trying to hold me back. My name is Eleanor Hart. I'm 68 years old, a retired county librarian, and a mother who still believes that family means being welcome, especially on Christmas. The door opened, and my daughter-in-law, Sabrina, filled the frame with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. She looked at the pie, then at me. "You came early," she said flatly, stepping aside just enough to make me hesitate. The smell of roast turkey drifted out, warm and rich, but something colder sat between us. I took one careful step inside. The house was glowing. Silver garlands, cinnamon candles, a table already set for 8. Then she bent down, pulled a paper plate from the counter, and placed it on the floor beside the dog's bowl. "There's no place for you here, Eleanor," she said, her voice sweet as syrup. "But you can eat here if you'd like." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The laughter from the dining room carried through the walls, muffled but cruel. My hands tightened around the pie dish until I felt the metal edge cut into my palm. I wanted to ask her why, what I had done, but the words stayed frozen in my throat. I didn't know it yet, but that paper plate would be the first crack in a Christmas that would tear every secret open. The smell of roasted turkey hit me before I even took off my coat. I could hear the soft hum of carols from the living room, the kind that should make a home feel warm. But that house didn't feel like home. It felt staged, too polished, too rehearsed, like a photograph you couldn't touch. Sabrina turned on her heels and went straight to the kitchen, her heels clicking sharp against the hardwood floor. I followed quietly, holding my pie, pretending not to notice the way she avoided looking at me. "You can put that over there," she said, pointing to a narrow counter behind the refrigerator, far away from the main dishes. The space felt like a storage corner, not a place for a family recipe that had been on every Hart Christmas table for 30 years. I set the pie down carefully. "I can help carve or plate whatever you need," I offered. She didn't answer. She was too busy arranging cheese and crackers on a fancy board, her phone tucked between her shoulder and her ear. "Yes, Grant, the mock-up is ready," she whispered, her tone suddenly sweet. When she caught me watching, she smiled quickly and said, "Work call." I walked to the dining room. The table was stunning. Silverware lined perfectly, candles flickering against glass ornaments. There were 8 chairs, every one of them taken by a name card. None had mine. A small table for the kids stood in the corner, covered with plastic cups and cartoon napkins. There was no card there either. Michael came in from the hallway, adjusting his tie. His face lit up when he saw me, that same boyish grin that had carried him through every scraped knee and science fair. "Mom, you made it," he said, kissing my cheek. He glanced toward the kitchen. "I thought we had another chair," Sabrina answered without turning around. "It's fine. There isn't space this year. We downsized the table for a more minimal look." Michael hesitated, looking from her to me. "Mom can sit by me. We'll make it work." Sabrina turned, wiping her hands on a towel. "Michael, please. The table's already balanced. She'll be more comfortable at the sideboard." The sideboard, an old buffet table pushed against the wall, had no chair. Only that paper plate she'd placed earlier, now sitting beside the dog's bowl as if mocking me. I tried to smile, to keep the peace, but something inside me cracked. I had raised a man who knew kindness, who believed in fairness, but kindness can drown in silence, and silence was all I could hear from him. As everyone began to arrive, Sabrina's voice filled the air, light and bright. "Oh, you found the place. Come in, come in." She hugged her guests, mostly friends from work. Their perfume mixed with the scent of sage and butter. They looked around and nodded approvingly at the house. Her house. One of them handed her a bottle of wine. "Grant says you saved the pitch this quarter," the woman said, laughing. Sabrina blushed. "Oh, tell him not to exaggerate." Michael smiled politely, not catching the subtext. But I saw the flicker in her eyes, the same one I'd seen in women who liked being admired too much. Dinner began. Plates clinked. Laughter rose and fell like waves. Every joke seemed to orbit around Sabrina. Every compliment returned to her. I took a quiet bite of mashed potatoes, my first of the night, tasting salt more than butter. When the conversation turned to work trips and late nights, Sabrina spoke louder. "Sometimes we're up past midnight finishing those campaigns. It's crazy." She laughed, her eyes darting toward Michael, then away. He nodded, proud of her dedication. I looked at my son, his tired eyes, his gentle smile, and I realized he had no idea. The candle beside me flickered. I leaned back, letting the room blur into a distant hum. My hand brushed against the phone in my pocket, and I felt the sharp edge of truth waiting there. Screenshots, dates, a receipt from a hotel 2 towns over. I had promised myself I wouldn't ruin Christmas. But promises can only stretch so far before they snap. The night was still young, and the truth was sitting quietly on my phone, ready to be served. The laughter around the table grew louder, but I heard none of it. All I could hear was the faint buzz of my phone against the tablecloth, a reminder of everything I'd chosen to ignore until now. The screen glowed for a second, another email from my bank, another piece of proof. I slid the phone face down and folded my napkin carefully, as if small gestures of order could keep my heart steady. Across the table, Sabrina lifted her glass. "To family," she said, her voice smooth and bright, "and to the people who know how to respect boundaries." She looked directly at me when she said it. The guests chuckled politely, unaware that her toast was a blade. I smiled back, but it wasn't warmth that moved my lips. It was restraint. "Respect works both ways, dear," I said quietly. Michael cleared his throat and reached for the gravy boat, trying to pour peace between us. I watched him, my son who always tried to fix things, even when they were already broken. Then one of Sabrina's friends, a tall woman with glittering earrings, leaned in and said, "Grant couldn't stop talking about your presentation last week. He said you have a magic touch." The room tilted for a second. I saw Michael's face soften with pride, while Sabrina's cheeks turned a shade too red. Her laugh came out brittle. "Oh, Grant exaggerates. He just appreciates hard work." Hard work. That was one way to describe hotel receipts at midnight. I felt the air tighten around me, like the house itself was holding its breath. My pulse slowed, oddly calm, the way a storm steadies before it hits. I reached for my phone, unlocked it under the table, and sent 3 pictures to Michael's number. One from the hotel lobby camera, one of Sabrina's email confirming the booking, one of the signed bill with her handwriting. It took less than 10 seconds. When his phone buzzed, he smiled automatically, thinking it was a work alert. Then the smile fell. His hand froze halfway to his glass. I watched his eyes widen, the way a child stares into fire for the first time. Sabrina noticed. "Everything okay?" she asked. He didn't answer. He just kept staring at the screen. The guests began to shift in their seats, the noise collapsing into an awkward quiet. Someone coughed. The candles flickered. Michael looked up, voice steady but low. "Why do you have a hotel receipt from last Friday? Downtown Cleveland?" Sabrina blinked. "What?" "The Riverside Inn. 2 nights. Room 812. She laughed once. Too sharp. It was a client meeting. Michael, Grant was there, the whole team. "The receipt says 2 guests, I said. My voice surprised me. It didn't tremble. "And the minibar charge is for 1 bottle of red and 2 glasses." The color drained from her face. "You went through my email?" "No," I said softly. "I went through the truth." The room cracked open. Guests exchanged glances, whispers slicing through the air. One couple stood, muttering excuses about needing to check on their kids. The front door closed behind them with a hollow thud that echoed through the dining room. Sabrina's voice turned shrill. "This is insane. You're jealous, Eleanor. You've hated me since day one. You want him to yourself." Michael pushed his chair back. "Stop." His voice cut through hers, quiet but final. "Mom, can I see those files?" I handed him my phone. He scrolled, his jaw tightening with each swipe. Dates, messages, photos. It's all here. He looked up at his wife. "Why would you do this?" She pressed a hand to her chest. "Because I work hard. Because I needed someone who saw that." "That's not an answer." Her lip trembled. "You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible, Michael. You and your mother have this bond, this wall I can't get through. Invisible." The word hung there, ironic and heavy. She had made me invisible at her own table, and now the truth made her see-through. I gathered my things silently, ready to give them space, but Michael stopped me. "Don't go," he said. His eyes were red, but his voice had steel in it. "You don't get to be the villain here, Mom. You just told the truth." Sabrina turned away, pacing. "We can fix this," she muttered. "I can explain to Grant." Her phone buzzed again on the counter. The name Grant Avery glowed in bright white letters across the screen. Everyone saw it. Michael's gaze followed the light, then dimmed. He picked up the phone and placed it face down. "Dinner's over," he said. No one spoke as chairs scraped against the floor. Guests left one by one, their cheerful goodbyes replaced by the hush of falling snow outside. When the door finally closed behind the last of them, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like hours. The house smelled of smoke and candle wax, not of Christmas. Michael stood by the window, shoulders slumped. "I didn't want to believe it," he said. "I know." I walked over and touched his arm. "But sometimes, son, believing hurts less than pretending." Behind us, Sabrina sat motionless at the table, staring at the empty chairs. Her kingdom of candles had gone cold. I thought the night was over. I was wrong. The worst of it hadn't even started yet. The silence after everyone left was louder than the party had ever been. The house, once bright with laughter and candlelight, now felt like a stage after the curtain fell, empty, scattered, and filled with the smell of something burnt. The turkey had gone cold. The wine glasses stood half full, lipstick smudges drying on their rims. Sabrina sat at the table, still holding her phone. Her fingers trembled, not from guilt, but from panic. Michael hadn't moved from the window. His reflection stared back at him in the dark glass like a stranger he didn't recognize. I wanted to say something, anything, to ease the tension. But there are moments when words only make the wound bleed faster. Then her phone buzzed again. The name Grant Avery flashed once more. She snatched it up and whispered into it. "Don't call me right now, he knows." Her voice cracked on the last word. Michael turned. She froze, realizing he'd heard every syllable. The phone slipped from her hand and hit the floor with a dull thud. "Is there anything else I should know?" he asked quietly. She didn't answer. He stepped closer. "Anything else, Sabrina?" When she finally looked at him, her eyes were rimmed red but still defiant. "It's not what you think. I just wanted to feel appreciated. Grant made me feel seen." Michael shook his head. "He's your boss. He's a friend. He's married." The words fell like hammers, each one breaking something between them that could never be mended. I started gathering plates, trying to give them privacy. But Michael stopped me with a small gesture. "Mom, don't, please." His voice was tired, and something about the way he said it made me put the dish down and sit instead. Sabrina rubbed her temples. "You've both never accepted me. I can't breathe in this family. You and your mother, always judging." Michael's tone hardened. "You invited my mother here. You humiliated her. And now you've humiliated yourself." For a moment, her expression shifted, fear flashing like lightning before the mask returned. "You can't talk to me like that. You think you're perfect. You've been working 12-hour days. You don't even notice what I do anymore. I notice the credit card bill," he said suddenly. Her head snapped up. "What bill?" He walked to the credenza and pulled open a drawer. From inside, he took a thin envelope, the kind banks send every month. He tossed it onto the table. "This one." Her face went pale. That's not mine." "It's in my name," he said. "A new account. Opened 8 months ago. But I didn't open it." My stomach clenched. I had seen those same papers earlier that week when I helped him with his taxes. The statement showed thousands of dollars charged at boutique hotels, high-end restaurants, designer stores. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Now, looking at Sabrina, I knew it wasn't. Michael's voice stayed calm, but I could hear the tremor underneath. "Do you want to explain why there's over $37,000 in charges? Or why the mailing address is a box you rented under your maiden name?" Sabrina stood, knocking over her chair. "You went through my mail?" "I went through mine," he said. "You just hid it better." She turned to me, desperate now. "You put him up to this, didn't you? You're turning him against me." I rose slowly, my hands steady. I didn't have to. The truth did that on its own. She pressed both palms to her face. I was going to pay it back. Grant said the bonus was coming, that it was just temporary. Michael cut her off. "Stop talking about him." He took a deep breath and reached for his phone. "I'm freezing the account first thing in the morning, and you're going to HR. You're going to tell them everything before they find out another way." Sabrina's eyes widened. "You'd ruin my career? You already did that," he said quietly. The wind outside rattled the windows. Somewhere in the distance, a car passed on the icy street, its tires whispering against the snow. For a long time, no one spoke. Finally, Sabrina said, "I can't stay here tonight." Michael nodded once. "Then don't." She walked down the hall, gathering her coat, her perfume leaving a trail that mixed with the smell of smoke and wilted pine. Before she opened the door, she turned toward me. "You've always hated me, Eleanor. You wanted this." I looked her in the eye. "No, Sabrina. I wanted peace. You brought the war." The door closed behind her with a soft click. Michael stood motionless for a few seconds, then sank into a chair, his head in his hands. I went to him, resting my palm on his shoulder. "You did the right thing," I said. He laughed bitterly. "It doesn't feel like it." "Doing right rarely does," I told him. He looked up at me, eyes hollow. "I don't even know where to start tomorrow." "You start with truth," I said, "and with canceling that card." He nodded slowly. Then, as if realizing something, he whispered, "HR's gonna know by morning anyway, Rebecca, Grant's wife. She's on the board." We both sat in stunned silence. The weight of everything, the lies, the money, the humiliation, pressed down until breathing felt like labor. I reached for my coat. "You should rest. I'll get out of your way." He caught my hand. "Don't go, please. Not tonight." I hesitated, then stayed. together. We turned off the lights, leaving the dining room in darkness. Only the faint glow of the Christmas tree remained, reflecting off the paper plate still lying on the floor beside the dog's bowl. No one spoke, but I knew that by morning, that plate would no longer be the ugliest thing in this house. Morning came gray and quiet, the kind of winter light that makes everything look softer than it really is. Snow had piled against the porch steps overnight, untouched and clean, as if the world outside refused to remember what had happened inside. I woke before Michael. The house was cold. The tree lights were still blinking in the living room, their colors dulled by daylight. I made coffee, not because I needed it, but because that's what mothers do when there's nothing left to fix. They brew something warm and wait. When Michael came down, he looked older. His voice was rough, sleep tangled with heartbreak. "Mom," he said, rubbing his face. "I called the bank. The account's frozen. HR's meeting with her today." He paused. "Rebecca left me a message. She found the same receipts in her husband's email." I nodded, pouring coffee into his mug. "So it's all coming out now." He leaned against the counter, staring into the steam. I keep asking myself what I missed. How could I not see it? "Because you wanted to believe the best," I said. "That's not weakness. That's love." We sat at the kitchen table, the one that had seen so many Christmas mornings before this. The silence between us wasn't heavy anymore. It was healing, like air after a storm. Around noon, a car pulled up outside. Sabrina's. She stood in the snow for a long time before knocking. Her eyes were swollen, makeup smudged. She looked smaller somehow, like the wind had blown the pride out of her. "I came to get the rest of my things," she said softly. Michael nodded, letting her in. I stayed by the kitchen doorway, watching. She moved through the house like a ghost, avoiding every reflection. When she reached the dining room, she stopped. The paper plate was still there, right beside the dog's bowl. Her lip quivered. "I shouldn't have done that," she whispered. "No," I said. "You shouldn't have." For a moment, her eyes met mine, and for the first time, there wasn't hatred there, just shame. She took her keys, her coat, and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned slightly. "I hope you can forgive me someday." I didn't answer. Forgiveness is a seed. It grows on its own time. After she left, Michael came to stand beside me. "What now?" he asked. "Now we clean up," I said, "and then we eat." We spent the afternoon putting the house back together, stacking plates, tossing wilted flowers, letting the cold air sweep out the smell of old candles. When we were done, I warmed up the turkey, set 2 plates on the main table, and placed the apple pie in the center. Michael looked at it and smiled faintly. "You know," he said, "I think this might be the first Christmas dinner I've actually tasted." I smiled back. "Then have seconds." As we ate, the snow began to fall again outside, soft and steady. The world had found its rhythm, even if ours had changed forever. Before we finished, Michael reached across the table and took my hand. "Mom," he said quietly, "next Christmas, can we have it at your place?" "Of course," I said. "But you're carving the turkey." He laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in days, and for a moment, everything felt whole again. That night, when he went to bed, I stayed by the window, watching the snow gather under the porch light. The house was still, the air faintly sweet with cinnamon and coffee. I thought of Sabrina, of all the words left unsaid, of the pain she'd caused and the emptiness she'd be facing now. Then I thought of my son, the boy I'd raised, the man who had finally learned that love without respect is just noise. I turned off the lights, leaving only the tree glowing softly in the dark. Love doesn't shrink when it's tested. It stretches. It endures. It multiplies. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy these family drama and revenge stories, please subscribe and join me for more every day.